Hi everyone, how are you doing this fine morning? Seattle, great. I love it. I love it. I love the energy, and the weather has been very nice here in Seattle, so that helps. So it is a very, very big pleasure that I get to introduce Lisa. So Lisa Sultis, I'm sorry, is the founder of Electra Line Marketing and your event marketplace. And last but not least, she's the executive director of the Northwest Event Show. Everything that went well on the show, it's Lisa. She's behind the scenes, she's doing everything. You have no idea. Whether you email her at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., or 6 a.m., she's always responding. She has done an amazing, amazing work putting everything together. And a lot of this experience comes because she has supported multiple Fortune 500 companies, associations. She has done virtual events, live events, production. She's beyond amazing. So if you're doing anything events related, she knows all the right people. She knows how to get things done on timelines, vendors, attendees. So I really hope you will enjoy this session. I will not speak too much. I will just let Lisa take it from here. As we like to joke with Lisa, she's like my sister from another mother. So we see each other on shows a lot. But before I pass on the mic, I have to ask you one quick question. So if you have any questions, because we have a virtual audience, please use either the handheld mic or there's another one in the back. Please use a mic so that everybody on the virtual audience can also hear. So please, a very, very big round of applause for Lisa for everything she has done for the show. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you. Oh, feedback. I love when I get too close to the speakers or the mic. And so if anything went wrong with the event, it wasn't my fault. Probably was, but we'll go away with that. So Panos, thank you very much. He is a dear friend, and I truly appreciate him doing that intro. So we are on day 2, which is hard to believe. I'm still standing, which is hard to believe. But today I wanted to talk to you about a very hot topic, and that is kind of that big debate that everybody is having between virtual events, live events, hybrid events. What do we do? What do we don't do? How do we decide? And it's a big conversation that we're having. So I wanted to make sure that we took some time to talk about this and really start looking at some of the numbers. You'll probably figure out pretty quickly as we're going through this presentation, I'm an advocate of hybrid. You'll figure it out very quickly, so I'm just going to tell you at the beginning. And there's some very specific reasons, but there's also some things that make it really hard. So we're going to talk about that today as well. But when we are talking about event planning, we do have to make that decision. Are we doing a live event? Are we doing a virtual event? Are we doing a hybrid event? Are we just going to say no to the event and let the event planner sleep, right? What are we going to do? So we're taking a very official poll down at my booth. Who has voted? Anybody in this room? Yeah, everybody's loving it. This was last night before I left. It's actually pretty close, just taller this morning. I had to get my slides in last night, so I couldn't update the photo, but it's funny because future of events, live and hybrid are pretty close on the voting, and of course this is very Forrester research type voting, but it is very close, and it's fun to talk to people about why they think, why they're voting for hybrid, why they're voting for virtual, why are they voting for live, and to get those different perspectives from everybody. So if you haven't voted, 1, be sure to vote. Down at the booth. 2, when you vote, you get really cool, fun ribbons for your badge that nobody else has. But we are really curious to see what people are thinking in terms of the events right now. So when it comes to planning your event, the first thing I'm going to tell you is just get creative. It doesn't matter whether you're doing live, it doesn't matter whether you're doing hybrid, just get creative, because events in our space can be used for so many different things that people don't always necessarily consider. So for example, here's a few, right? These are different events we've produced. Obviously, we're at a conference and trade show, right? This thing's huge. You can do summits, exhibitions, town halls, meetups, product launches, awards and recognition. Any of those can be done in any of those formats, right? We've done award galas virtually. We've done employee recognition virtually. It's not as much fun, but there was this thing called COVID, so we had to get really creative. But in case if you're not like thinking of other ideas, there's only a couple more of different events that we can do. And so when you're looking at all of these different events and what your purpose is, let's look at the event type first, right? What's the goal of our event? Well, we want to have a user event. I don't actually even know if I have hackathon on here. I don't even have hackathon on here. You could do a hackathon. If you're a software company, right, you can do a hackathon. So there's all these different events types that your clients can do, you can do, and we want to take a look at what's the event that we're doing in the first place before we even start the conversation of whether we want to go live, virtual, or hybrid. Okay. So let's talk about all the amazing reasons to consider hybrid. One is increased accessibility. We are able to get more people to an event if we offer them a choice. They can come in person. I'm a huge in-person fan. Panos knows I'm a hugger. If I meet you, unless if you like crossing your arms and running away from me, I'm gonna hug you and say hello, right? When we all run into each other, right? I missed that during COVID. And I think a lot of people did. They missed the community. They missed that connection. So live events always offer that. But we have that increased accessibility for people that can't come for whatever reason. Maybe they do have medical issues. Maybe they have childcare issues. Maybe they just don't like travel. They don't want to sit on the person next to the airplane anymore. We have budgets being cut at companies, right? My husband's old company, they don't authorize travel anymore. They were like, oh, well, we figured out we can do this all virtually, so we're going to do everything virtually. So there's a lot of different reasons that we can get more people to the event if we do it in a hybrid format. Higher attendance is directly related to that. We want to see the numbers come up. We want to be able to have more people hearing our message, whether that message is brand awareness, whether that message is sales, whether that message is community. We want to be able to have more people in attendance to hear our message. We want more flexibility. That's offered with hybrid events. So we can offer these choices to our attendees so that they can make the choice as to how they want to attend. And then we have increased engagement. So we are able to provide an opportunity for our in-person people to engage with people who are online. And I'm just going to interrupt real quick. If somebody has a water bottle in the back, I'd love to have one right now. But we are able to increase that engagement. So we can introduce people who are online to people who are in the room. We can introduce people who are in the room to people who are online, right? So we are providing value for our attendees by giving them that increased engagement, by introducing them to people that they might not have been able to be introduced to before. So we want to be able to provide that as a value for them. And then data collection. Oh my gosh, Nick Borelli and I were talking about this yesterday. What do we love most about virtual events? The numbers, right? We learned more about our virtual events with software than anything else. And now that we're back to live, guess what? Everybody wants the numbers. It's a little bit harder, and we're having to build that in. But with hybrid, we can get a little bit more information, right? Because we're using technology for the virtual side that we can then incorporate into the live side. Make sense? So we definitely want to get that data collection. I love numbers. I love knowing who's been online. I love knowing who they're talking to, how many videos they're watching, what they're downloading, right? All of those different things allow us to collect that data. So if we can collect that in person as well, thank you so much. Timing's always perfect. If we can collect that data for the live side as well, because we're using those same systems, then that gives us more data as we're planning our future events. And then greater reach. This is related to the increased accessibility and the higher attendance, but it is greater reach. So we can actually start reaching people on a global level. And what's really interesting is, before the pandemic, we could reach people on a global level, like nothing's changed, right? Except people's mindset. So before the pandemic, businesses tended to stay a little bit more focused on, maybe their immediate geographic area or maybe just the US, right? They weren't really focusing on how they could go ahead and get that global reach. Well, the pandemic hit and people started actually thinking, oh, wait a minute, we can do this. So we've done events where, we were up at 2 a.m. and producing because the event was in Australia and we had speakers in, all over the world. We had one in China, we had one in New York, we had one in South Africa, I believe. And so it's giving you the ability to bring your message to more people. And then when you incorporate that with the live event, again, you're really getting that scale and reach that can very easily grow your company, grow your message, and really help you scale. So this is my favorite little dude. He's on almost every single slide deck I do. So hybrid events really provide access to a global audience. And even if your clients aren't thinking about that, or if you're not thinking about that, it's something you might want to consider. Because really, as we continue to have these conversations, we are becoming a much more global society. And it really helps us to take that message and really get it out to the masses to really have an effect. So it's really providing us that global audience. All right, well, what to consider, right? There's a lot of considerations with hybrid. Even more so than a normal just live event. And I should never say just live event because I'm exhausted after the last week. But there are considerations that we have to take into to think about. So one is our target audience and our industry. Different audiences and different industries react differently to event formats. So here's an example. I mentioned this from the main stage yesterday. We did a 12,000 person hybrid last November, and it was medical community. And we decided to be really, really smart. And we decided to take their traditional medical posters and make them digital. Sustainability makes it easier, people online can see them, like all of these positives that we sold the client, right? Amazing, amazing idea. Got through the event, got the feedback from the client, and guess what the physicians hated? The fact that their posters were digital. They wanted to walk up to the table to that lovely little cardboard tri-fold display with their little papers that are glued on, sometimes crooked, sometimes straight, right? They wanted to be able to walk up to it and see it and touch it and feel it and all of those things. So we now know that when we do that event next year, guess what we have to do? The posters will be digital for the virtual audience, and they're also going to be on the floor. We had 2,200 posters. So that means next year we have 4,400, right? 2,200 on the floor, 2,200 online. But that was the feedback because for them, that's important. And so we need to make sure that we're considering what our audience is and what they want. So industry can have a huge effect on whether you do a virtual event or whether you do a hybrid event or whether you do a live event. Some industries, they only want live. We have those conversations all the time. We have a wiring cabling company or organization that they had to go virtual, right? They have come back to live only. They won't even consider hybrid because for their audience, that's not what they want. So really take a look at your audience, take a look at your target market, take a look at their industry so that you know that you're meeting their needs versus what we think is a really good idea. That was a really hard lesson that we learned in November. Budget. So there's two considerations here. There's the attendee budget and there's your budget. So from an attendee standpoint, hybrid's a great idea, right? Because they have the option to not travel. They don't have to pay for a hotel. They don't have to pay for all of these different things. They don't have to pay to go out to dinner. They don't have to pay for childcare. They don't have to pay for dog care. That was really expensive this week. right? So there's all these things for your audience that hybrid can be a really good option for them, because then they don't have to necessarily make those sacrifices. They don't have to figure out the schedule. They don't have to do all of those different things. Then we have our budget. Live events are super cheap, right? This building didn't cost anything. Hybrid events can sometimes be double the cost, because guess what? Now you're planning 2 events. So you need to look at your budget and see what fits in with your budget as well, when you're still trying to figure out what fits into the client's budget and the attendees' budget. So a lot of budgetary considerations. It's not one-sided. Okay, the goals of the event. Please, please, please start with the goals first. I will ask people, why are we having this event? And I either hear because we always have this event. Seems like a great idea. I'm like, no, tell me why we're having it. Is this to sell things? Is this to get that brand message out? Are we trying to move people up into a membership model? Are we trying to build community? Are we trying to provide networking? Like, why are we having this event? Because I need to start with the end so we can plan it. I can't plan it if I don't know what I'm measuring at the end to know if it's successful for you. So we have to start with the end, and when we start with the end, then we can sit there and look at it and say, okay, well, does this make sense as a live event then? Virtual, hybrid, like what makes sense for this particular event? So definitely look at your event goals. Oh, expectations. This is one of my favorite conversations. No clients have expectations whatsoever. No attendees have expectations whatsoever, right? This is a really hard one to meet. And you have to ask every question that you can think of, and then you have to ask 10 more. Because expectations from your team, expectations from the client's team, expectations from the attendees, all of that comes into consideration. So when we were planning this event, we spent a lot of time having a conversation between Stuart and myself and the team as to, are we gonna do this one as hybrid? There were a lot of conversations with it. What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages? We wanna open it up. We want people, this is the Pacific Northwest, but people, maybe can't travel from Oregon. Maybe they can't. We have people that came up from California, right? We really kind of focused on the West Coast. We have people that came in from Idaho, but what if they can't? Do we make this a hybrid event? So there were a lot of considerations, and how do we do that? How are we going to provide networking? How are we going to do this? How are we going to do that? And there were a lot of conversations about what we needed to incorporate to be able to make that happen. And obviously we decided to go hybrid at the end. There's some things we want to do differently next year. There's some things that we want to keep the same next year. We learn from everything that we do, but we really want to look at the expectations. And then for you, right? You all are in this room. Thank you for that, by the way, for not having an empty room. That makes my heart feel much better. But we wanted to know, like, what do you all expect? We have this beautiful building that we're in, this brand new beautiful building, right downtown Seattle. But what do you expect? What do you expect from the schedule? What do you expect from the educational sessions in terms of topics? That was a long discussion too. What do you expect from the exhibit floor? What do you expect from all of these different things? The keynotes, right? We had 2 amazing keynote panels. We have another closing keynote this afternoon. I hope you won't miss it. It's going to be amazing, so stay for it. But all of those considerations in terms of what expectations are, and then determining, okay, well, how are we going to deliver that? So a lot of consideration when it comes to expectations. And then there's the disadvantages, right? I felt like this about Tuesday night. I was tired. So the disadvantages, because there's lots of great things about hybrid. I told you I'm a huge hybrid advocate. And there's a lot of things that are really, really wrong with that hybrid. So one, technical difficulties. By the way, amazing AV team at this event. I will tell you that right now. Amazing. But technical difficulties happen, right? And what's funny is sometimes it's not our fault. We produce, it's not our fault. The attendee doesn't know that, and the client doesn't care, right? So technical difficulties happen. We had an event once, we were on site at a convention center, and it was a union convention center. So there's all kinds of rules, right, that go with that, that's fine. And 2 minutes before we were starting the stream, somebody rolled over our Cat 5 with this really big cart and killed our stream. And because it's a union building, we can't replace the Cat 5 cable. They have to. So we have to wait for them, right? The attendees on the other side of the camera have no idea. And I'm certainly not going to type in chat, well, some person just rolled over my Cat 5 and I'll get to you when I can. Like, I'm not going to do that, right? So you're dealing with attendees that are mad because you have these technical difficulties that have nothing to do. It was just a random mistake that somebody made, right? Mistakes happen. We've had internet go out in buildings before, right? We're hard-lined in, car accident down the road, takes out the, I mean, stuff happens. So technical difficulties, just, you all know, technical difficulties are not necessarily the AV team not doing their job. 99% of the time, it is not the AV team not doing their job. Something strange has happened. But then you got to pick up the phone call and you have to call the client and be like, so it wasn't our fault. They love that phrase, by the way, because they don't believe you and they don't care. And honestly, I don't care either, right? All I want to do is make it right for the client. So technical difficulties are definitely a disadvantage. We have to take a look at that. Cost, like I said, hybrids can be expensive. I am producing 2 events at the same time. They just happen to be occurring at the same time. That's it. So I've got my AV cost for my live event. I have my AV cost for my hybrid, or my virtual side, sorry. They just happen to be happening at the same time. So costs can go up, and you have to be able to plan for that. So it has to be worth it to justify the cost. You have to know that your virtual attendees are going to get something out of it to justify the cost. Audience engagement. So isn't it funny, because this slide is like very similar to the one I had a few minutes ago where I was like, here's all the benefits of hybrid events. And then you get to the disadvantage side and it's like, wait, 2 of those bullet points are the same. Audience engagement, right? Hybrid's hard for networking. We have to work at it. We have to tell people this is how you network. We have to encourage the people who are here and live to go online and get on the app and go find somebody and go Google or not Google, but search the company that they're looking to connect with to find the person to network with that person who's not here. So networking can be hard. We really try to find different ways to bring networking between individuals and groups. So I've done events where we actually will do very targeted breakout sessions where we bring in virtual attendees, we bring in remote attendees, we actually have, or that's the same thing, virtual attendees and live attendees, and we have them both get online at the same time in these breakout rooms, and we do, maybe topic tables, right? Or we do different things to get them in the room and networking with each other. I will tell you, if you are ever trying to put even just virtual people in a breakout room, but definitely if you're doing both live and virtual in a breakout room, please, please, please have a moderator in there. Because if you put all these people in a breakout room and you're like, hey, go talk about virtual events, they all get in the room and one of 2 things happens, right? One, they start talking about their cats or their dogs or whatever else, other non-topic subject that you want them to talk about. Or they talk, like they just come in and everybody turns off their camera and goes on mute, and you have this room and it's silent. So make sure that you have a facilitator in there who is really facilitating that conversation. You have to get audience engagement right, and that is where hybrid fails 99% of the time. It's really hard, and you have to be very, very strategic about how you're going to do it. And I'm watching heads in the room, and when I said 99% of the time it fails, you know what I saw? Everybody's head bobbing, because every single person in this room has been to an awful hybrid event on either side of it. So it can be really hard, and you have to do it really, really well. And then communication. Communication's hard, especially when you're talking to the virtual side of the attendees, right? We can send emails out, we can send messages, we can send SMS, we can do all, whatever, right? They don't necessarily read them. And then you get everybody who's emailing you in saying, I don't know how to do this. How do I do that? How do I do this? How do I do that? And I'm like, it's in your email. But I know what my inbox looks like, so I just assume that everybody else's is just as bad. So communication challenges are really hard. In-app push messages are great if you can get them in the system. If they're not logging into the system, in-app messages don't do you any good, right? So you have all of these challenges of, okay, I need them to read this email so that then they can go over here and get in the app. And then I need them to go in the app and do this. And it's like, well, we're still over here because they haven't even opened my email yet. And then you start sending them more emails, and then they get mad at you that you're sending them more emails. So it's just a challenge when you're talking about hybrid events of how you're going to communicate with people. And then with people in the room, right? I'll tell you something I did yesterday that was wrong. God, I'm admitting this while we're recording it. That's awful. I announced from stage that we had a cancellation in a session yesterday afternoon because we had a sick speaker. Did I remember, because I was running around yesterday, to actually go on the schedule and mark that session was canceled? No. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm sorry. I had lots of friendly email messages yesterday afternoon, so I am publicly apologizing for that. It was a miss on my part. Communication challenges with hybrid, right? I didn't communicate with everybody in the building. I didn't communicate with everybody online. So you have to really work at that. And then logistics. This is why this guy looks so tired. Logistics are hard. They're hard for a live event, they're hard for a virtual event, and then you put them together for a party. And it's really hard to get all the logistics right. So planning is really important. Obviously, I've got a bunch of planners in the room. They all know that, but it still is really, really important because the logistics of doing both sides of the event is hard. And so that's probably one of the bigger disadvantages of hybrid is you have to work twice as hard. And, I have a sweatshirt. Y'all probably see it on me when I'm doing teardown today that says no eat, no sleep, just plan events. It's hard. So getting the logistics of everything put together for the events, you have to work a little bit more to make it happen. So that's another disadvantage of hybrid. All right, so let's talk the numbers. This is why I'm an advocate. Let's talk the numbers. So we had a small event, 188 total attendees. We decided to do it as a hybrid. We had 111 online. I'm a psych major, not a math major. That's 77 different, right? 77 in person, 111 online. That is a 66% virtual turnout. That was a medical industry conference, or seminar, I should say. So 66% of the people that came virtually. I'm not sure I want to leave that many people out of my event. That's a big percentage. Next one. Total attendees, 442. Of those 442, 215 attended virtually, giving us almost a 50% virtual rate. That particular one was an environmental association. That one, I believe, was a 3-day event. So 3 days, 215 people attended virtually because it's hard to leave your office for 3 days. But I can sit in my office for 3 days and attend virtually. No childcare, no dog care, no nothing. No husband care, we're good. Next one, they're getting bigger. 1,922 attendees, 1,300 virtual. 67.7% showed up online. That one was a coaching and membership. So they provide coaching and then they enroll people into their kind of membership coaching package, right? And I was like, wow, you guys had 1,900 people sign up for this. So we had, 600 people in the building. It was great. That place was buzzing. 1,300 online. And then my last one. This was the November event. 13,658 attendees. I was a little tired. This was the one with the 2,200 poster sessions. We had 1,984 sessions in 5 days, plus 2,200 poster sessions. Almost 6,800 showed up online. That's my small percentage, 49% virtual. That was a association. So it's a medical association. So this is my smallest percentage, right? Do I want to give up 49% of my attendees? Never. Never. That is a huge percentage. When I'm looking at my business personally, I would never want to tell 49% of my followers that they can't come to my event, ever. When I'm looking at my client numbers, I don't want to look at my client and say, you know what, you're good. Let's just do the live one. Those other 68%, they can just rest. They don't need to come. These numbers are why I am a huge advocate of hybrid. Hybrid is hard. Hybrid is exhausting. Hybrid has to be done right. But I don't want to give up 50 to 70% of my audience by not doing hybrid. Does that make sense? So it's really challenging, and it's interesting because I have these conversations with people and they're like, no one's going to show up. We'll be good. I'm like, really? No one's going to show up? I don't know. I think maybe we need to reconsider this. Now, in some industries, that might absolutely be true. And if they can prove it to me and say, yeah, we tried it last year, we had like 2 people sign up for virtual, I'll be like, okay, yeah, fine. But I'll say, well, what did you do for hybrid? Oh, well, we had our live event, and then we pushed it to a live stream. Okay, but is that hybrid? Or is that a live event with live stream? So we have to be careful because when we're looking at hybrid, it's like, well, what really makes a hybrid? Are we just doing the live stream? Are we trying to do the networking, right? Are we trying to do something that is special for these people who are online? So again, you have to consider it. If you come back to me and, yeah, we did this and we did that and we bought this software and we did all of these amazing things and we had this app and we had this and da-da-da, and we had 2 people sign up. Okay, fine. You all are live. Like, we're done. But let's look again at what those numbers are. So I'm not willing to give this up. It's a judgment call, but you have to look at the numbers to know whether or not this makes sense. All right, so to wrap this up, when done correctly, and that's a really big preface, when done correctly, hybrid events transform how people interact with your company and your brand. Hybrid events will build relationships for you between you and between your connections. And most importantly, hybrid events provide access to a broader audience, and they really do help build and scale your business. So I'm really hoping that you all will consider it. I will tell you, if you ever have a question about an event, just connect with me on LinkedIn. I have people call me all the time and they're like, well, we don't know what to do. What do you think about this? I'm like, yeah, let's have a conversation. Because talking through it, a lot of times we can make sense of it and then they can move forward. I don't ever want anybody to be stuck. That is the worst feeling ever. So if you have an event coming up or you have a client event coming up and you're like, oh, I just don't know, just connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm on there daily. I'm one of those crazy people on LinkedIn all the time. And you can message me and I'd love to chat with you about it because it really is talking through how we're going to make sense of what hybrid is. Okay, so any questions on here? We have a mic in the back. Panos took my handheld, so I don't have a handheld up here anymore. But do we have any questions? And we want to make sure people are on mics because we are recording this. We want to make sure that we get everybody on there. All right. Hey, Derek, you want to run for me? That's what happens when you know people in the audience. Can you guys give him the mic to run, please? Right here. I know. I'm impressed. That doesn't happen very often.
Thank you for all of that. I was wondering, with those statistics from the hybrid, were the attendees traveling, or was it more local events?
They were all traveling.
Okay.
Yep,
Good to
every
know.
single one of those. That's actually a good point that I should have put in there. Right behind you, Derek, too.
I was curious about sustainability playing a part into this. I know I've seen some studies with the climate associations that scientists are choosing not to travel, and that's why they're going hybrid.
Yes, and that is part of the conversation. And what's interesting, you guys grab a snack and then come back, because our next session is actually about sustainability. Stuart and I are going to be up here, and we're going to be talking about what we did to make this show more sustainable. And then we actually have somebody who's been calculating it while we've been running. I don't know what the answers are, so it'll be a big surprise. But yes, sustainability is a huge issue, and so there are people that are making decisions not to travel. Right? So yesterday, for example, Vimal pre-recorded his presentation from Singapore. That's a big trip, right? So the amount of carbon emissions that he saved by not traveling from Singapore was huge. And so he made that decision to pre-record for us for that reason. And we are starting to see that. We're seeing people that want to really be very hyper aware of what our carbon footprint is when it comes to events. Events are horrible for carbon footprint. So I think we're starting to see those numbers, and really, I think it's going to continue. Over here. Oh, right there?
Yeah,
Sorry.
I just kind of wanted to dig into your definition a bit more, or have you elaborate on your definition of hybrid and what constitutes hybrid for you. So I'm kind of curious in particular about performance attendance numbers when, say, the live in-person event, or the in-person event is live, but maybe the talks are posted online, and so the access to the networking and expo and live stream is asynchronous.
Right. Yeah, and if I ask every single person in this room what a hybrid event is, I will get, however many of you are in here, different answers, right? So for us, hybrid is, when we're producing, we try to incorporate as much as we can. So obviously we have the live stream. We record everything, we post everything, but we want the people who are online to be engaging with us, right? And yes, we have some of those amazing tools like chat and polls and Q&A. I think people are kind of tired of those, right? The chat's great because that's immediate feedback, but some of the other things I think people are getting tired of. So we have to look at what we're going to incorporate, and that, I will tell you, depends on our client and audience every single time, because what's right for one client isn't going to work for another. So we have clients that we will work with that we try to do, while the live people might be at an opening dinner, we will do something virtually for the virtual people. So we've done parties, we've done DJs, we've done Name Your Tune. That went over huge. I'm going to age myself. I loved that show. And we did a Name Your Tune segment one night, and they loved it. And they showed up. So it's really just incorporating all of those different pieces, just depending on the audience. But it's going to be more than a live stream. Derek, over here first.
When you do a virtual event, I think just because of COVID, when you think virtual, you think Zoom. Is there a specific app that you use for your hybrid events, or is it a bunch of different apps that you use depending on the need, or where do you find those?
Yeah, we have a few different ones. I have a couple of clients that are like, we use Zoom, we use Teams. Nothing against Microsoft, I love Microsoft, but it's harder to produce in a Teams or a Zoom, right, to have all of that engagement and interaction. So if we can move somebody into an event platform, we will. We have about 5 that I keep in my back pocket, just depending on how big the event is, what their needs are, things like that. Obviously, we're using GevMe for this one. We've used EventMobi, Events Air, probably a couple of other ones that I'm not thinking of at the moment. And again, it really is just a matter of, we want the platform to fit the client. So we look at those different things that they have. You know, Events Air has some really nice things that are built into it that maybe some other platforms don't have, but not all my clients need that. So then maybe we move them over to something else that meets their needs. So yeah, we have about 5 that we work with. But I definitely try to put people in event platforms. I love that they can sit there and make connections with people. I want people to get on there and be like, oh, I just met you. Can we, go hop in a room and have a chat virtually? That's a great add-on. So if we can put them in a platform where they can do little meetings and one-on-ones and different things like that, we definitely want to do that, plus some other things. Either? I don't know. We'll go with ladies first.
Thank you. Kai Roberts-Fu, Magnus Media Group Video Production. What are some of your favorite questions or the most important questions to ask clients to you're determining if they need full hybrid, partial hybrid, virtual, just to kind of really ascertain their needs for their particular group?
Yeah, we will ask them first, like I mentioned, what's the goal of the event? Like, why are we having this? Oh, it's a scientific meeting, or oh, it's a STEM competition. That was a really fun one. The kids with the carts with the balloon. I don't remember what you call those. Where they, build their little car and race the whoever's balloon runs out of air first. There's a term I'm totally forgetting. But we will ask them, why are we having this, right? What's your goal? Then we go into who's your audience, right? Standard kind of marketing 101, right? What's your avatar look like? Who is your target market? What are we measuring for ROI at the end? What makes this a success for you? So we start with kind of our standard marketing, digital marketing questions, and then we work backward from there. But I ask a lot of questions about the audience. Once we get kind of past the goals, then we come in and, okay, that's when we start getting into the audience. What are their expectations? What are your expectations? What's the cool factor you want to throw in, right? There's got to be a cool factor. We got to throw something fun in. So what can we throw in? We deliver swag to people. We've delivered meals to people. I had one client call me, and she was like, we do this, annual retreat every year, and I take everybody to a private island with a private chef, and they get to do this, and they get to do that, and we can't do this year, so can you produce that virtually for me? And I was like, I'm good, but can I go to the private? Like, if the team's not going to the private island, I'll go for them. Like, we could do that. So we were doing daily gifts that were being delivered to them and meals that were being delivered to them, right? So that they still felt special and unique and all of these different things. So it's really talking through those questions of, how do you want your attendees to feel? How do you want to make an impact on them? How do you want to give them that wow for them to come back? Because we all know, I'll come to your event once. If I loved it, I will come back. If I didn't, yeah, I'm good. I don't need to travel to that one. I'll go to a different one, right? And that's going to go with content. Content is still king. I'm sorry, I hate to say it. It's such an overused phrase. But if your content at your event is bad, no one's coming back. I don't care what kind of little presents you give them. Unless it's like a trip, but so we really want to take a look at that. But we just ask lots of questions about the attendees, what the experience is, and how do you want to wow them. Yep.
You did a great job in telling us about expectations of the client and attendees. And over the last few years, we've made leaps and bounds in progressing with everyone's comfort with technology, or at least acceptance. Can you speak a little bit to what you might need to do with the speakers, the talent, the handling? I realize it's a big topic, but take a stab at it.
So as a speaker, I can say this. Managing speakers is like herding cats, really wild ones that don't like people. And it's gotten harder. So what's really unique is speakers need the same education, right? Because we find things like, I had my slide deck up, right? and we were doing an event and hybrid, and the lady presenting on stage got her clicker out and was like, so this point's really important. And she hit the laser and she's doing this. And I had 25 people in a half a second online going, I can't see the laser. You need to put the laser, the AV techs need to put the laser on the screen. I'm like, it's not the AV techs. She shouldn't be doing this, right? What she should have done is on her slide deck, outline the box, right? Or done a blinky thing, right? You were just doing this with your hand, or done an arrow, or done anything other than look at this, right? It doesn't work. So we have a lot of speaker education, even after, are we at 3 years? Oh God, we're at 3 years today. Today's the 16th, right? Wow, y'all. It is 3 years today. I was actually in Portland with Derek on site with a client that was supposed to be hybrid 2-week event. I flew in town on Thursday. This is I will come back, I promise. Flew in town on Thursday. Friday night we decided, Portland might be shutting down. Got the call Friday night. We're flipping this to 100% virtual. Spent the weekend flipping everything. That one's about, 1,800 sessions in 5 days? Had team meeting Monday morning, got in the airplane. Well, actually, got on the third plane that I was actually ticketed for because they just started canceling all the flights. I came home on March 16th. Got home like this much. But anyway, I can't believe it's been 3 years. Oh my gosh. But anyway, so back to your, in this 3-year span, you would think that even with all these speakers presenting online, that they would kind of get it. It's no different than when you're on Zoom with somebody and they're like, oh, well, if you look at this on my screen, and they're literally pointing to their, like, we all still do it. So there's a lot of speaker education, but we're very, very obsessive about trying to manage our speakers. I did a session, he's in the room, he's about to smile. I did a session yesterday with Session Board. We use Session Board for this one. Because we just, we have 52 speakers for this one, about 200 exhibitors. You figure with the exhibitors, that's like 600 people, right, for booth staff. We have to be able to manage it. So we spend a lot of time with our speakers doing education. We do a lot of just talking them through it and really working with them of, don't forget there's a virtual audience, right? Acknowledge them. Let them know that they're here. And then don't do silly things like point at the screen with a laser pointer. Like, it just doesn't work that way. And it's habits, right? We all have habits that we have to learn. So yeah, it's a little bit of a challenge, but we still have to, we're getting there. And then engaging with people, right? It's easy to engage with you all. You're shaking your head. I know that you're happy. Or you make a face at me and I'm like, oh, that was a horrible comment, Lisa, right? I get that feedback. When I'm on camera, I can't see what everybody online is doing, unless if we're on something where we have their cameras on, which I don't love doing because you get all kinds of surprises when you get people's cameras on. But it's harder. So speakers have to work harder to engage with their people that are virtually online. Yeah.
So further to that point, have you, in the examples you gave, or I guess in other projects, have you tried to or pushed for a production approach to presentations that's more like producing television, to use Bob Bejan's term from yesterday, thinking of it as television programming rather than stage presentations that cameras are pointed at?
Yeah, we talk to people about slide decks all the time. Mine still aren't the perfect ones, right? But if I go back, you'll notice that I never have, let me go back to one of these. Like, that's about as many words as I ever have on a slide. Nobody's reading it. So we want to make things very visual. We want to make things very easy for people to digest in very, very small bits and pieces. And so again, there's a lot of education. I still get slide decks that I open it up and it's like, 8-point font fill in the whole thing. And I'm like, nobody's going to read this. No one cares. Like, you could just print that out and email it to them. So it's really just a matter of, how it's an education piece, right? And we're still getting better with it.
In the examples you shared, did you charge differently for virtual attendance versus live or in-person attendance?
Yes. With the exception of one. That was an argument I lost. They charged the same amount, and it was a mistake. So yeah, your virtual audience should always be at a lower cost, in my opinion. It's my opinion. But we always recommend doing your virtual audience at a lower cost, unless if you're doing something so amazing as an add-on, as a wow factor, that it totally makes sense to make it the same cost. But we'll generally do less. Never, ever do free. Y'all know that, right?
I think a lot of people would argue with that.
Never, ever do free. The reason you never, ever do free is because if somebody doesn't have even $5 into the game, they won't show. They have to have some skin in the game. So.
And how did you do? Do you typically do surveys for your events? Did you survey both the in-person audiences and virtual audiences for satisfaction and
Yeah, we always
effectiveness?
do surveys.
And how did those compare, those events?
It depends on the event, and it depends on the experience. Some of them, they still, it's funny. The Cat 5 example, everybody was mad at us. I was like, come on, seriously, like the guy rolled the card, it wasn't us. And they were like, we paid money for this and the stream went down and da-da-da-da. And we're like, okay, it's all right. Like it was down for about 60 seconds and it was recorded and it was posted. So we're good, right? But yeah, it just depends on the audience and kind of what happens and things like that. But the surveys are always usually, as long as the content is good and as long as your speakers are doing their job, our surveys come back really highly ranked. Hang on one second.
The questions that you had about speaker management and session board is helpful, but did you talk to them about the virtual green rooms? Because I've seen that those have been really helpful. So for speaker management, am I gonna?
Oh, green rooms, they're so much fun. So here are my 2 pieces of advice. If you have a speaker who is not on stage, they're virtual. 1, please do a rehearsal, a really, really good one, and be mom, right? You need to make sure that you look good. You need to make sure that you're facing the window and that your back isn't to the window. You need to make sure that you're in the same room today that you're going to be next week. Oh, by the way, are you on the same computer that you're going to be on next week? Oh, by the way, do you homeschool your kids? Great. They don't get to be online. They get the day off from school. No more, binge watching whatever they're binge watching, right? Like we have this whole checklist that we have to go through with these speakers because you would think that they know, they don't. So green rooms are really, really important. Being able to control the sound on green rooms. This is why I always have AV production people, because guess what? They can mute my mic when I say something stupid. Or if my phone is ringing, oh yeah, turn off their cell phones. Yeah, they don't do that either. We had a speaker once that she was all mad at us because we couldn't hear her. She could hear us. We couldn't hear her. We kept telling her, call the tech. He can help you. She wouldn't call the tech. 45 minutes into the hour-long panel, we discovered that the headset that she was wearing that has a thumb switch on the cord was muted. And she was mad at us. I'm like, we're not in the room with you, sitting next to you on the desk, right? We don't know that you just muted your own cord, right? So yeah, I mean, speaker management in the green room is really, really, really important. We've seen some crazy things. I tell people all the time, how many of you are event planners in the room? I'm just curious. Awesome. So we're all getting together and we're writing a book of stories of the silly stuff and the crazy stuff, right? Man, it would be like, and then we're gonna all get in a room and have a drink together to talk about it, because the stuff you see is just crazy. Yeah.
In terms of budget, one of the big costs is your venue rental. So if you're doing a hybrid event, how do you make those decisions early on what that venue is? Do you work really quickly with the client, decide who's in person and who's virtual so that you space allocate appropriately budget-wise?
Yeah, we try to kind of estimate the numbers, right, as to how many rooms we're going to need, how much venue space we're going to need. Even walking this space, so you guys are going to be all really disappointed when I say this. We originally were going to put the keynotes up in the ballroom. If you haven't been in the ballroom yet, go upstairs. And then we came back and we were looking at it, and I was just like, that space is stunning. It's just a little bit too big, right? And I don't want to pay the cost just because the room looks pretty. Actually, I do, but I don't, right? So we make a lot of those judgment calls in terms of how are we going to do the space, working with the hotel, how many rooms do we really think we need? And again, we're looking back at data to say, okay, maybe it's pre-pandemic data, but we have to look at the data to try to make those justifications and those decisions. And it's hard, but we work through them.
So I've been doing virtual events for 3 years. I haven't even done a hybrid yet because of my client. So it is what it is, but I have just loved being here the last, for 2 days.
Yeah.
But my question is around event planners. How do you keep your staff motivated? Because we've been doing these events with our internal team, behind the scenes, with a production team, on Teams, with these participants global, and to keep our own motivation up to do 3 events a day. We don't get to go to the bar after.
Right.
We don't go to a party like we did last night. It's been so challenging. We have people on our team that we haven't even met in person yet.
Correct.
So how have you managed that? Because I'm still kind of struggling with it a bit.
Yeah, it's a challenge. So even pre-pandemic, so, Derek's being nice enough to run mic for me. Derek and I worked together with a client for 4 years, maybe? I don't even know anymore. 3 years? Something like, it seemed longer. But, and then when I started coming on site for this other project in Portland for him, I walked up to him. I was like, oh my God, it's so good to meet you in person, and gave him a hug. And all the other people in the room were like, he recommended you. You guys have never met? And I'm like, well, not in person. Like, I talk to him every other day on Zoom, but, other than that, same thing. If you go down to my booth, my production guy, Quincy, is down there. We've worked together. I hired him during the pandemic. And when we came to this event last year, he lives in Portland, I live in Arizona. When we came to this event last year, it was the first time I had met him in person. And I walked up to him, I'm like, oh my God, it's so good to meet you. Of course, I gave him a hug. I'm a hugger. Stuart looked at me and he's like, he works for you. You've never met him? I'm like, not in person. We talk all the time. So we've done things where, one, I let them tell me exactly what they think some days, because, there's days that things don't go great, and I just, give it to me. But we've done some virtual stuff if we're not in the same space, especially since we live in different states. I try to do something here and there. We've been known to drink together on Zoom. Oh my gosh.
Can I add to that
Yeah.
a little bit? I work with software development now and hardware development. My team is around the globe, and the last place I worked with at an event platform, I never met my team.
Mm-hmm.
But every week we would have like a fun day on Friday, and we do like development stuff, or we do some little group session, and that really brought everybody together. And it was a mandatory thing. It wasn't one of these, oh yeah, if you guys are good to hang around, we're going to do something. It was, you need to be here because we're a team, we're a group, and we all need
Right.
to be on the same page. We all need to be together. So
And we go to
that
events
helps.
together. So we will meet in different places to go to events together to actually be able to spend time together. And we're learning, kind of, because I'm not a big, go to sessions person as a speaker, I love being on the floor. But we'll go to events together. So, like NAB's coming up, Infocom's coming up. We'll all go to Vegas and hang out. We go to the event during the day. I take them all to dinner at night. We go out and have a drink together. And we just spend time with each other that way. So yeah, go to another event with them. And make it something close, too. It doesn't have to be something that's, a big deal. Even just going to some, if there's some cool, there's a bazillion cool little venues here, but going to some cool venue, here even, or bring them in for a couple days for a workshop day or just a team meeting. I'm a huge advocate of quarterly and annual planning events with your team in person if you can make it. And then, spend a day meeting and then go do something fun, because those meetings are never fun. Questions? One more up here. Can I get a time check too? I have no idea. Thanks. Oh, we have to finish up then.
Okay. What are some ways you can get your exhibitors more involved and have them get more benefit from hybrid events?
Yeah, exhibitors, we love our exhibitors, but we also, it's education there too, right? We are always trying to get them to not only help promote the event, but there's a lot of education with exhibitors of how to even have a virtual booth. That's really, really hard for exhibitors to kind of wrap their head around. I tell them all the time, if we are having a virtual booth at an event, you need to double your sales staff, because half of them are in your booth and half of them are online, because they have to be available like this. So we do a lot of education. What do you put in the booth? How do you do calls to action? They're like, I can't put my brochure on the table. I'm like, yes, that's correct. You shouldn't be doing that at a live event either, right? So there's a lot of education with our exhibitors for that. So it's really, again, working through them, hand holding them. We have to hand hold everybody, right? But that's okay. That's what we do. All right, well, thank you very much, everybody, for coming. I truly appreciate it. Come back in 30 minutes. We're going to have another amazing session. But thank you for coming in. If you have any questions, please connect with me.